السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى اللهم وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, كتاب أنزلناه إليك مباركا ليدبروا آياته وليتذكر أولو الألباب. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this verse, He tells us one of the benefits or one of the reasons that the Quran was revealed is that so that we would think about these verses, we would ponder about these verses, reflect on them, so that those of knowledge would remember. And as we read the Quran in the month of Ramadan, it's important and it's wise for us to try as much as we can to reflect and understand these verses that we are reciting. Because in the end, this is truly how we can gain the most out of the Quran. Because with this knowledge, we can truly practice the Quran. Today, inshallah, we're going to talk about one of these stories that has been mentioned in the Quran and see how it can be a great source of solace, for example, for us, or a source of knowledge when we reflect upon it. This story has to do with this specific surah in the Quran is the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. Generally speaking, one of the lessons that we can benefit or learn from Surah Yusuf alayhi salam is how this surah can be as a solace for any person who faces any sort of hardship. And that the main message behind it is that we should always depend on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and trust whatever befalls us from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that we would never lose hope in the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the verses or the surah of Yusuf alayhi salam beautifully shows this. If you go from the beginning, from how he was taken by his brothers, an act of treachery, taken forcefully from the arms of his beloved father, from home that he felt love and shelter and food, and thrown into the well, a place of darkness, a place of cold, a place where he would feel lonely. And then from there he would become a slave after he was a free individual. And from that slavehood he had ended up in jail due to a crime he did not commit. So he was an innocent person, wrongfully accused, being placed in jail. However, how did Yusuf alayhi salam deal with all these things? Later on, he was able to get out of jail after interpreting one of the dreams for the king of Egypt. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provided these means for him so that he would become the Aziz of Egypt. He would become the treasurer, the person who's in charge of treasury or all the treasures in Egypt. After he had informed the king that there would be 7 years of drought coming along. And at the end of the story, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed the events to occur in a way that Yusuf alayhi salam was able to reunite with his family. So where does all these beautiful messages come from? Now remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, for example, another verse in the Quran, وَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُ شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ وَعَسَىٰ أَن تُحِبُّ شَيْئًا وَهُوَ شَرٌ لَكُمْ. Perhaps you might hate something and it's good for you. Or you might love something and it's bad for you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over here is talking to us or teaching us how we should deal with the things that might befall us. Some of the calamities that might befall us, or some of the events that we might not like that might befall us. Is that be careful, that do not dislike something. You might hate it, but in reality it's good for you. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the end of the verse says, وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Allah knows best and you do not know. And Allah knows and you do not know. So in reality, when anything bad or anything any hardship befalls us, we have to remember this, that this is part of the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what is best for us. And we need to trust Him. And this is what Yusuf alayhi salam did. He did not complain about being taken away from his father. He did not complain about being enslaved. Neither did he complain about being imprisoned wrongfully. But rather he depended on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He trusted the judgment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows and he does not know. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a wisdom behind everything. And so he trusted Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the events that have happened and continued on. And he hoped that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would bring the mercy back again. And this is from another verse of the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had said, and this is Yaqub had mentioned, this is reminding the brothers of Yusuf. He said, وَلَا تَيْأَسُوا مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ إِنَّهُ لَا يَيْأَسُ مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ إِلَّا الْقَوْمُ الْكَافِرُونَ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, do not give up, do not despair from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because verily only those who are the disbelievers that despair from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we believe in one of the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He is the most merciful, then we need to believe in this and trust it. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will do these things. That He will, in the end of the road, if we truly believe in His names and attributes, and trust Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will provide a means and way out for us. And this is what Yusuf alayhi salam did. It's a story of hope and depending on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm going to end this by reminding us of the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, this is a hadith qudsi that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, أَنَا عِنْدَ ظَنِّ عَبْدِي بِي. I am as my servant thinks of me. So whenever a calamity befalls us, or whenever any sort of hardship that we face in our life, we really need to think well of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because He will be for us as we think of Him. When we truly believe and trust and depend on Allah that He will provide a means and way out for us, it will happen inshaAllah by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because in the end we do believe in His names and His attributes. And one of those beautiful names is that He's the most knowledgeable of what's happened to us, and also He's the most merciful. جزاكم الله خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.